Thanks for doing this. The durability of the coalition or alliance that has been put into place to respond to the invasion. What's the level of concern right now about how that can be sustained? And you mentioned food and energy prices. Are there things that the President or the U.S. will specifically put on the table to try and ease some of the issues that have been rattling elements of that?
To your second question, the answer is yes. I don't want to get ahead of specific deliverables right now, Phil, but I think it's fair to say that that there will be announcements forthcoming about how to impose further costs and consequences on Russia. But again, I don't want to get ahead of that. On your first question, I mean, my goodness, he's going into a NATO summit where the alliance has truly never been more unified, and now there's active discussions about adding to that list of nations another two countries willing to seek accession in NATO. It's just truly never been more relevant or viable. And the same goes for the G7. If you just look at the scope of the things they're going to be talking about, from climate, energy, food security, as well as the war in Ukraine, and the fact that there are additional countries coming to the G7, 4 additional countries, there's an awful lot. There's an awful lot of unity to see here. You know, we've had this discussion since before the invasion. You know, can NATO stay solid? Are they going to be fractured? Because, of course, the last thing Mr. Putin wants is a strong NATO on his western flank, and, of course, he's gotten just that. And we haven't seen any fractures or fissures. I mean, every country speaks for themselves. Every country has concerns for what they're willing to do or not do. But as far as the alliance goes, it truly has never been stronger or more viable than it is today. And the president's looking forward, when he gets to Spain, to seeing that, in real time.
Nadia. Thank you. John, I noticed that you have invited other countries to join, like South Africa, Argentina, Senegal, and India.
And Indonesia.
And Indonesia. Some of them have huge economy and others have lesser economy. What was the significance of inviting these countries? And is it an attempt from the administration to tear them off from any alliance with Russia?
To splinter them off from alliances with Russia?
It could be a potentially could be some of them, not all.
So these additional countries that you mentioned, they have been invited because there's certain agenda items at the G7 that will apply to them, and I'll let them speak for their involvement in those sessions and the relevance to them. But because the agenda is so diverse and so deep, it was deemed appropriate to bring them into that discussion. It is not about trying to splinter them off or coax them away from any other association or partnership that they might have with another country. That's not the goal here. The goal is to unify around a set of common principles and initiatives that the G7, you know, you'll hear more about this at the summit, but that the G7 wants to advance in terms of climate change, energy and food security. As I said, adding additional costs and consequences to Mr. Putin, further isolating Russia. All these nations have a piece of that, and certainly in the G7, there's unity around that sort of an agenda. Yes, ma'am.
You were talking about the